Coming to you live from It's Always Sunny in Seattle studios. This is Open Mic, a podcast about art, inequality, and the troubles of 2024 America. I am your host, Mike. Before we get started with our interview episode today, a little bit of house cleaning. Tears for Gaza is a selected 25 poems that I wrote from October 2023 to the middle of February 2024. It touches on themes of loss, war, the fragile nature of democracy, the rising popularity of fascism, and, of course, hunger for peace in our time. If that at all interests you, please check out the show notes for the links. It just came out today, so I'm pretty excited for you to read it. As a matter of fact, I'll start this episode off by reading you a selection from it, and then we'll get right in today's interview with Nothing Still Dreams. Me. I am the poet. I write poetry, with words and structure that came before me. I stand on the shoulders of royalty. I speak profoundly, frequently. I am the watcher in the winds. My sword and shield are books and pens. My magic schemes rhymes within a killing verse well sharpened. I stand for you. I write for me, hiding messages intently. I wield the pain we cannot see within, so tread carefully, respectfully. Today we're on live with Nate Valentine. Nate, go ahead and introduce yourself. What are your name, pronouns, and what do you go by on socials?
Right. So, name is Nathan Valentine. I am a music and lifestyle photographer based out of New York. What else you ask for?
Pronouns.
Pronouns is he, him, Mr. You address me as Mr. Valentine if you want. My socials is at Nothing Still Dreams on both Threads and Instagram. I do not use Twitter, so no X, no Twitter. And that's pretty much that's my call sign. That's it. That's what it is. I have a TikTok, but I'm not really promoting it like that. I'm like, listen, if you find my TikTok, hooray, you found some treasure. That's how I treat it. It's like treasure. You found some treasure, man.
You found Nate's hidden memes.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, I'll accept it.
And so you said you're a photographer and videographer out in New York City. Tell us a little bit about some of your past work. What are some projects you've worked on?
Oh, so my past projects, I've done an award show. It's pretty cool. I've worked on movie sets. I've done a couple of music videos here and there with local artists, and a projects on the burner right now. I am building a bit of a production thing on the side for myself, and I'm focusing more on the the journey of being a music photographer and recording that and showing that to people and having them understand that, hey, these are achievable dreams if you put yourself out there and do it. So
No, absolutely.
yeah.
And how did you come across? You said you do music videos, events. Like
Mhm.
what brought you on that journey? Like what particularly about that style of photography and videography grabs you?
I come from a musically inclined family, and we've always celebrated the joy that we get from listening to music, and that actually kind of just filtered down to myself, and I wanted to share that joy with other people through my vision and abilities. So that's kind of like how I got started, and it took a minute for me to really kind of like settle into it because I understood that it was a super competitive field, but I wasn't really sure if that was the final if that was like the final stage of what I wanted to do, if that makes sense. Like coming into it, I was, I started out as a musician. I played three instruments throughout my formative grade school years, so piano, guitar, trombone in high school, and I've always been connected to music, and I've never really found a way to express that connection until I picked up a camera.
Oh, excellent! And you just flashed it, but what camera are you using? Show us your
Oh,
gear.
so I'm recording on the X-T4 right now. So Fujifilm X-T4 3514, that's this one right here. This is a so this is an X100S. I bought it in 2014 This has been like my main shooter for a long, long, long time. It's basically a Leica for people who don't have a Leica budget. This is a 2023 2, a max shutter 4000, ND filter built in, leaf shutter. I can go on and on. One of the best cameras of all time, and I'm dead serious when I say this.
And that
Uh,
X100 series clicked off. It's been absolutely insane. What are your thoughts on using the point shoot versus the exchangeable camera? Like, which one do you grab when you go out for your photo walks?
well, when I do my photo walks, I keep both. I also have a Sony 6000 in the corner over there. It's hanging out. Kind of been on the fritz for a while, so I don't really run it that much. But I want to turn it into like a real like video rig and start using it for video assignments. But normally I kind of just grab this because it's inconspicuous. I like the idea of being inconspicuous, and I've looked at a lot of. I forgot to mention my street photography stuff. I like to look at people who've worked in the field in the past. And I think one of the guys' name is like Ken. I can't remember, but he's just basically walking up to people with a little camera and a flash. And it's just basically going like this and this and this, just putting it in people's faces. And the reason why his work he felt was so good, and then when you look at his work, why it's so good, is because of that immediate closure of space, right? And personally, I can't operate like that. I cannot operate like that because there's just, especially nowadays, kids out here nuts. The kids are nuts. All right, I'm just gonna say that. I'm just gonna keep it that. And what I like about this camera and the other one is the fact that it's extremely inconspicuous. So I can get the shots that I need. Obviously, I'll shake people's hands like, hey, let me take a picture of you. Da, da, da. But other times, it's best to just kind of like observe and then just kind of like capture what I observe. And it feels more like since I've come from like an art background, I started out in art. So coming from an art background, it feels more natural that way because like you can compose what you see instead of building it from, oh, hey, you pose over there, you stand over there, you do this, you do that. It feels a lot more natural. People can connect to it more. That's kind of like my method. That's why I like running these instead of the big old Nikon with the 70 the missile launcher. It's like, hey, I'm gonna take your picture, but I have a massive like take it. It's like swatting bees with a rocket launcher. If that makes any sense, right?
No, that's
He's just out.
exactly it.
So it's kind of like it's like, hey, let me take your picture. And I was like, yeah, wait, man, you got a 70 to 200, a tripod, a flash, a C stand. Where did you get the C stand from? Did you pull the C stand out of your butt? So I like the idea of being inconspicuous with my work. So that's why I like grabbing these. And every now and then I'll be out there just kind of like doing the thing. And I'll actually have people will actually have conversations. It's like, oh, hey, is that film? Is that Leica? What are you doing out here? Da, 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 da. I'm happy to talk to them about the thought process and things of that nature. So this is actually a bigger conversation starter than just walking up and just going like,
And you mentioned some of the like more aggressive street photography. Let's talk a little bit on that because you mentioned uh, Kent, and then like people like Bruce Gilden, where they get in the face and they do that very large and profound flash, and they get these like washed out images of people. But it's more of an aggressive strategy. Yours is a bit more of getting people when they're not necessarily paying attention to you, the camera person. I guess like as far as that approach, what are your feelings about a more aggressive versus a more passive approach to street photography?
I think with that aggression, you gotta have some major cojones. Just major cojones. I don't. I'm not gonna say I don't have cojones. That's just a different level of you have to have a different level of confidence to do that. So some of the things that I think influence that past work that kind of has me thinking kind of like a way of people should be able to get those good pictures without people just completely ruining their personal space. I'm sure that C19 had a big influence on that. My thought process is like, listen, you can get the shot without having to be hyper aggressive, and it pays to talk to people. Doing it in a less aggressive way kind of forces you to have conversations, right? If you're just sticking a camera in somebody's face, you're not really opening a conversation with that person. And for me, there's always a great story behind every picture that you take. How can you get that great picture if you don't talk to the person you're taking a picture of? Have a conversation. That is better for myself because of how I speak to people, how I interact with people. I feel a lot more comfortable if the person I was taking a picture of was open enough to have a conversation about, oh, hey, what's going on? Hey, what's going on in your life? What you out here today? Da, 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 da. Because there, they'll feel a lot more comfortable and you can get a better picture out of them instead of just going like click, click, you know. So there are reasons.
No, for sure. And you focused a little bit on the storytelling aspect of it, which is something that I find with street photography too. That's what I like taking. Usually, when I'm doing a street portrait, I'm asking them about their life too. Like, what are you doing here? What brought you here? That's a cool sign, buddy. Can I take a picture of it? Kind of my process as well. It's a little less. It's confrontational, but it's confrontational in a story aspect, right?
Right. Even if you never had to speak to anyone about, what they're doing in their lives or anything like that, it would still feel a lot more comfortable if you at least talk to them. Just talk. I mean, like I get that people are a little scary or whatever, but you'll get a lot further if you just talk to people. And now there are times when I do, and there are times that I don't. I'm not going to say that I'm perfect. I don't do it all the time. But when the time comes to have that conversation, open that door, and be conversational with that person, it really opens up an opportunity to be open and to connect with people. And photography connects people. So kind of foregoing that just feels wrong.
Yeah, it feels like a missing piece of it. Now, you said you got your X100 back in 2014. How long have you been shooting photography and video?
Boy, I started when I was wee, so when I was a whipper, and now I am a snapper. So I picked up a camera officially when you ask my grandfather, he'll say 14. If you ask me, I'll say I don't think I even started to really figure out what I was doing until I was 18. So people ask me, I say, yeah, I started when I was 18. You ask my grandfather, he's like, no, he started when he was 14. Let's just say a long time now.
A long time. And what did that first shoot work like? You said you shoot a lot of concert photography. What was your first one like?
My first, well, I know it was a rave. It was a rave in Jamaica. There it is. It was a rave in Jamaica. It was an experience because when I went, the only thing I had at that time was a D70 with a 50, with a nifty 50 on there. The pictures were okay. It was funny, I found some CF cards that I thought would have some like old Ross from when I first started, and there's nothing on there. Uh, there's nothing there. I guess that was like my first concert experience. And then the first time I shot an artist face to face was in Harlem, and I was using a Canon T3i. Oh boy, that was an experience. And that time I was running an 18 and 55 zoom, and that was an interesting experience as well because like it was first off pictures came out, all the pictures were dark, all of them were dark, and there wasn't a lot of like, it was a smaller bar, so there wasn't like a lot of like lighting to really help the situation that much. But it was something like I connected with that. It's funny. This is a funny story. So the artist that I did the shoot for, at that bar, crossed paths with her a couple more times, and at the end of that year, she moved to St. Louis. 3 years later, her social media explodes, like fucking explodes. Like she does a deal with, she did a couple of brand placement deals with VH1. She did a couple, her music really started getting out there, and then she started going viral everywhere. Facebook, Instagram, and then 3 weeks later it was TikTok, right? So whatever, blah blah blah. She goes and does her thing, but I always kept in contact with her because like as a musician, musician talk. We kind of talk. It's like, oh, hey, what you working on? Oh, the drums on your last song sounded like trash. Stuff like that, right? Just talking smack. 3 weeks, 3 or 4 weeks. It was about a month ago now. She was back in town. She hadn't been in New York in a couple of years, particularly because of C-19 and whatever, and raising a family and things of that nature. Being an adult, right?
Yeah.
Comes back to New York. She was hitting me up. I was like, hey, are you doing anything? Do you still live in New York? I was like, just trying to catch up because we hadn't spoken in a while. I was like, hey, no, I just picked up the XT4. I need to get some reps in. Let me come, let's hang out. And kind of like it never really left. So it's very interesting, like how when you show up for someone and they remember it, and then you actually come back and photograph them again, it's actually very interesting dynamic and experience. So, bit of a fun story there. Yeah, yeah, it's kind of like you just there at the very, well, I would say the beginning. It was more of like the midpoint of the journey. Now it's kind of like new game plus plus. New game plus plus, and you kind of have to go back and do that mission over again. Fun little story there.
You want to give her a shout out? What's where could we find her at?
Lydia Caesar, Miss Caesar on Instagram. You can kind of literally track the entire story of her music career if you want. No, I don't think my photos are on her social at all. Actually, I think those first photos you did for they were so far back. Her stuff is more focused on her husband and her family and things like that. So I'm not like pressed to be like, hey, post my pictures. Clearly, she has her own life. I'm not going to ask her to post my pictures. She has her own life.
When I first saw your profile on Threads,
Mm-hmm.
which is where we met,
Yeah.
the
Yep.
first photograph I think that I went to your profile for, you had shared, I think, from another creator, but you made an album cover out of it. It was a burning McDonald's arches.
Yeah.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about that photo and the work behind it.
All right. I gotta give you some backstory because that photo was actually taken off of Reddit. I've thrown my hands up, say I can't take credit for the picture, but Reddit posted a picture. I thought it was interesting because of basically what was going on with McDonald's at that point. It's kind of like they fed billions of people and can't escape the price hike. So it's like $7. So I think the joke came back as people are kind of spewing enormous amounts of hate because of the price hikes on the Big Macs. Like Big Macs started costing $7. People were like outraged. Like, I will never pay $7 for a Big Mac. Ah, you know, people were going crazy. And I just thought it'd be funny to show that McDonald's, despite the fact that they are helping foster, what was the actual world problems? But it's kind of like they're feeding into it, and now the first problem that they've had in a long time because think about it, like McDonald's has been the pinnacle of like business. Like no matter what happens in the world, you can always go into McDonald's and get a cheeseburger for some money. We'll just say some money. I don't know if it's good money or bad money. You always get a cheeseburger for some money, right? And the fact that it feels like, look, we're just gonna say it, America's kind of been limping since pandemic. I think that the burning McDonald arches was just a perfect way to illustrate that. It's kind of like you know that meme where the with the dog is sitting in like a he's sitting around a table.
Oh yeah, this is fine.
Yeah, this is fine. It's kind of like my flip on that. It's kind of like McDonald's is burning. I don't know if this is good. This is fine. This is fine. This is fine. I think it's kind of like comeuppance for all of the bad food we've ate for tons of years. So I guess
That's one way to burn calories, right?
he beat me to it. He beat me to it.
So let's talk about some of the current projects you're working on. So what do you got in the fire now? What not to put too fine a point.
What's on the fire now? I think really taking the content creation thing a little more seriously. The camera was a big getting the camera was kind of like a big step with that. I want to do more music based visuals and really start pitching myself as a music video director. That is kind of like the big goal. Potentially going to Rolling Loud in a couple months in Los Angeles. Now I still have to do the pitch and everything. I still got to talk to the guy about it and figure out all the logistics. And LA is kind of getting it in the teeth right now as well, so that's something to consider. That's kind of like the big thing. And of course, since I'm kind of knee deep in the content creation thing already, because I have the graphic design skills, I have web design skills, have photography skills, yeah, technical expertise. I want to start putting it to work in an efficient way by selling aesthetic. This is kind of like the way to start that conversation and to get everything going. So I'm going to record myself building a cinematic rig with one of these. So that's something that everyone should look out for. I also want to have more conversations with other photographers and kind of give them an avenue to talk about, hey, I want to say your struggles, but kind of like your ups and downs, your peaks and valleys of being a creative entrepreneur in today's very crowded and saturated market. So how can this guy stand out and and continue to be a creative force, a competitive market like this one.
Oh, for
So that's
sure.
pretty much so that's kind of like the main dishes in the oven right now.
And you said you're going to Los Angeles here in the next few months, or you're currently working to net that contract.
Well, right now I'm looking to net the contract. I can figure out the logistics and everything. I know I do have a 9 to 5, so that's something that I want to, consider in that maybe even looking at, doing more car photography also because I'm a big gearhead. I think it's starting to show. Okay, so like one of the assignments that I took on, I actually did the assignment with actual mechanics gloves, like auto. And the reason for that was because I wanted to. And that's number one. And number two, just the feeling. I think it having mechanics gloves is a lot more useful than people realize as a photographer because you're dealing with like hot lights, you're dealing with electronics, you're dealing with things that can really, really, mess your hands up. So I felt that it would be useful to just get some mechanics gloves that are burn proof, cut proof, because you never know.
We
You
do
never
shoot
know.
street photography, you know?
You do yeah, street photography is a thing. So, yeah, cut proof, and it's winter. Good protection, good base layer for winter stuff. I figure if I do that, I might as well get some photography gloves. But for the aesthetic, you gotta go mechanics gloves. You gotta go mechanics gloves. So I definitely want to look into doing some more car work, more for me than anything else. The music's for the people. The cars are for me.
We could dip into cars or music, but what is your dream subject? Like if you had a celebrity that you wanted to shoot, or if there was a car that you wanted to shoot of, like what is your dream?
Perfect subject. I think I wouldn't have said this a few years ago, but I think Donald Glover because he straddles the worlds of being a multidisciplinary creator. He does a little bit of everything. He writes, he sings. I'd like to photograph him as it would be great to photograph him as a musician. I don't know if he's playing any shows anytime soon. That's neither here or
Shout out
there.
to Childish Gambino. If you want to reach out to the show, we'll put you in touch.
Okay, yeah, definitely. So that's one. Another person I'd like to shoot would actually be the really just the Shady Aftermath collective as they stand right now. So that's all the guys. Benny Butcher, Conway the Machine, West Side Gun, Roman Candles, those guys. Just basically those guys. Just get them in a room. Actually, get them in like a Yakuza mobile, like one of those old Japanese luxury cars that has like the cell phone in the back, the extra large trunk. There's one of them that has like a footrest on the passenger side. Since the driver is on the opposite side, their footrest is actually on the the right side of the car instead of the left. It's a thing. It's really really neat. So I think shooting all those guys in a car like that or like a big like Maybach would be really really cool. Kind of like see it as like the coalition. You get like the entire coalition together, and they're kind of like sharing their riches. If you really go through those guys' story, it's actually a story. It's a very interesting story. One guy got shot in the face in Houston, so his face is actually in like a permanent like scowl. So it's kind of like this, but it's not because he's mad at you. It's because he actually can't raise the other side of his face. So, yeah, I think just like their story would just be interesting to just kind of like sit down and just talk to him about it because, boy, like I know how I talk about sometimes like I had like quote unquote tough times. No, perspective changes a lot when you really look at other people's experiences. I'll just say that.
And that was Mr. Valentine at Nothing Still Dreams on Threads and Instagram. You'll find links to all of his socials in the show notes, and I highly suggest you follow him. His work is phenomenal, and I'm excited to see where his creative journey takes him this year. Until next week, be progressive and stay creative.